Hey, welcome back to Ion Agriculture. I'm Britton Rucker. Farmers and ranchers face unique challenges beyond the fields and pastures. From navigating complex tax laws to handling legal disputes, these issues can significantly impact their operations and livelihoods. We are diving into the key tax and legal hurdles that they face and how they overcome them. To help break this down, we're joined now with Roger McEowen, professor of agricultural law and taxation at Washburn University. Roger, what are some top tax issues farmers face and how can they be prepared?
Well, good to be with you, Britt. That's a great question, particularly now that we're post-election. We kind of have a better feel for where tax policy might be headed. And one of the fears for farmers and ranchers was the TCJA, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, would expire at the end of 2025. It now does not look like it will expire since we have Republican control of the White House as well as the House and the Senate. So that's a relief for a lot of people as well as small businesses that are not involved in agriculture. So that's been a major concern right there. Of course, then we've got the classic issues that come up year after year for farmers and ranchers. Do I prepay expenses? How much do I prepay and deduct? What do I do with government farm program payments? Can I defer them into the next year? Deducting residual soil fertility is a hot issue right now. And on the list goes. But basically, the concerns have been where tax policy is going to be headed. That's going to be the big issue in 2025.
What are some legal challenges that come with land ownership or leases?
Well, some of the challenges involve who your neighbors are and battles over fences and borders. That seems to be a big issue. Where's a line at? And sometimes people in rural areas that haven't lived in a rural area don't realize that a survey doesn't mean nearly as much in an agricultural area than does the placement of a fence and actual usage of that land. So that's a big issue. And then we get into other issues with respect to surface drainage of water onto a neighbor. We get into nuisance-related issues with respect to noise and also with respect to odors. So those are also issues that come along with land ownership. So some time ago, a couple of years ago, I wrote an article titled, "So You Want to Own Agricultural Land?" And I got into some of these issues, and it really was an eye-opener for a lot of people that realized, I didn't realize I was going to have to deal with these issues. But, yeah, we could go on and on with that list, too. What about natural resources in the soil, oil and gas interests? Is there a surface tenant, a subsurface tenant? A whole host of issues.
All right, Roger, well, thanks so much for coming on this morning. We appreciate it. Everyone, stick around. Ion Ag will be back after the break.